You're listening to Rep Radio. Our goal is simple. We support, promote, engage, and inspire the arts community by igniting the ghost light that shines on the stages of the up-and-coming, the unsung heroes, the brilliant writers, and the dynamic designers. Our podcast breaks the fourth wall to give you an inside look at the plays and the players. Stay tuned. Rep Radio is on the air. Today on the podcast, 11th Hour Theater Company presents Society 11 Online, the Spring Series. First up in a series of quarantine cabarets, Rob Tucker and Billy Bustamante pay tribute to musical theater with pieces paying homage to Broadway greats. Stay tuned. Before we get into this, I wanted to let you know that there is a little bit of background noise you will hear because this is virtual and that's how we live today. So you might hear some kitchen business going on in the background from one of my guests. And so now you know, and here we go. The first of the three in this series will feature Rob Tucker and Billy Bustamante, and I am in the virtual studio with both of them. So, Rob, Billy, hello. Welcome to Rep Radio.
Thanks, Darnell. It's great to be here.
Yes, it's great to see you both. It's been crazy. When I think about how much of my life, recreationally and professionally, is attending theater, to not do it for so long has been nerve-wracking. Even though I've had the opportunity to have some virtual experiences, which have been great, they do not compare to that excitement, that energy of live theater, being in the space with all the love in the room and just celebrating the great work that's on stage. So I'm happy to be with you both today. And we're going to talk about your cabaret series, which will be coming up. If you're listening to this now, you should probably go buy tickets to see that link, but we'll talk about that later. So I have to say to everyone, because it's 2021, we have to do a quick year-end review, because where have you been for the past year? So tell us a little bit about how you've been holding up in this shutdown and this madness that was 2020.
Woo! Oh, it was me.
We'll start with Rob.
I think we both kept pretty busy. I've been, among I've done some creative performance-based things here and there, usually like theater galas. I think I did 11th Hour Gala. I did Gala. So I've been in a couple of here and there. I've been doing a lot of teaching on faculty at University of the Arts, our alma mater. And so I teach a lot there. So I've been teaching a lot mostly. I've been doing some vocal work as far as choral singing, virtual choir stuff, which is interesting. That's how I've been kind of keeping creative and keeping busy. Mostly though, when I'm not doing that, I'm just stress cooking and stress baking and then binging. My face. I know you know a little something about bacon.
Yes.
So I've and I've baked some things that I haven't done before. So
what do you find that you are baking the most of?
Oh gosh, it's a new thing, and so I'm now gotten into testing recipes. So
Mhm.
I'll take like a recipe and then I'm like, oh, what happens? Like the other day I did, and luckily I have like students who live around me, so they can leave the house. So all the stuff is stuck here, and I eating whole hams and stuff. So I the other day I did like molasses cookies. I was like, okay, I want to make some chewy molasses.
Mm.
That's for them. Spice molasses. And I was like, I decided to play with two different recipes. One had melted butter, one had not. One had cinnamon, one didn't. How does that affect the spread? How does that affect the flavor? So I'm like testing now. So I'll do 2 batches and I'll give most of it all away because I realize
that is the way to do it.
Yeah.
And you're right about the spread. Whether you use the sill pad or whether you use parchment, it makes all the difference. And you can't just because you think it's cute to have the sill pad. It may not give you what you want in the end.
Parchment hurts itself. I don't mess with the silk pad. Spray that stuff down so it comes up.
Yes, definitely. Billy is beside himself right now.
I am. I'm trying to laugh quietly and unobtrusively for the recording.
Billy, what have you been up to? How have you been keeping yourself busy?
Oh, well, I'll tell you that it has also included my fair share of baking and stress cooking and pandemic binging in every sense of the word. Otherwise, yeah, I agree with Rob. It has been, thank goodness, quite busy. And I would also say like quite creatively stimulating. I'm in your boat, Darnell. I miss gathering and I miss being in a theater all the time, on both on stage and off stage. And while it's definitely a void that I can still feel exists in my heart, I do think as I've I almost hate this word now, but like as we pivoted our lives, I also, similar to Rob, got heavy into teaching, and that became a big part of my artistic practice this year. I teach at a place, quote unquote place that is in quote unquote New York City, but now exists online and worldwide. Called the Jen Waldman Studio, and it's a place where professional actors come and work on their artistic craft and kind of get back to a process instead of a product. So it's actually been kind of thrilling to see what the online and virtual space has created the opportunity for. When we think of our brick and mortar studio where I would teach in person, we had 3 classes that we taught, 3 different classes. And now we've created like almost 20 different course offerings that are each specific and purpose driven and kind of help give theater artists a new thing to focus on and a new way to be creative utilizing the digital space. So in that way, I felt quite creative, and my eyes have felt quite tired looking at screens all day.
So what do you do? So what do you do to relax and pull yourself away from those screens? Because I feel that as well. I work in IT by day, and then I'm often surprised that I can actually step away from the technology to just relax and be in a space with my partner. So what do you do when you step away from all that?
I mean, I don't know how you feel, Rob. I kind of feel that's why cooking is so great, and like making, like getting in the kitchen and like getting your hands dirty and like doing something and then having like a visual representation of the work you've done is so satisfying.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, cooking is therapeutic. It's like I can binge watch TV. That's all. Food and some of it's comfort TV. I'm not above like saying like, I've seen these episodes 7 million times, but I will watch me a 4-hour block of Murder, She Wrote. No shame.
No shame at all. Take pride. We started the first series we kind of started watching over quarantine was Schitt's Creek because we hadn't really watched it until then. So we obviously tore through it. And I'm at the point now where I will there are YouTube someone with way too much time on their hands made like YouTube playlists of each storyline. So I can watch like the David and Patrick's storyline on YouTube unobstructed by anything else, or like just Moira's stuff or just Alexis's stuff, and it's actually like become like nostalgia for me now. Lord, here we are. This is our life.
Yeah, we've done that with Shameless.
Yes,
they've on YouTube just showed you here's Fiona's arc, here's Liam and Mickey, you know, through all their drama, and you're just like, wow, what a dysfunctionally beautiful relationship they have. You're just like, if they can make it, anybody can make it.
It's true. It's
through
true.
everything that's being dealt to them. So tell us about this cabaret. When did the idea come up, and how did you get together to put this together?
Oh man, Rob, tell me if I'm like misquoting anything, but essentially the way I remember it is Michael O'Brien gave us a call and said, "Hey, how do you feel about this?" And it was more the seed idea of the pairing of Rob and I, and then the actual content and the title came as Rob and I kind of, you know, got in the Zoom room and thrashed around with some ideas of what type of evening we would want to present. But yeah, thanks to Mike O'Brien for getting us together.
Yeah, I think he thought there was, and I'm not speaking for him, but in talking to him, there was something about, because, you know, Billy and I have known each other almost 20 years now.
Many years.
Many years now. And so, you know, we're both connected to 11th Hour creatively. We're connected to each other creatively, and you know, our friendships. You know, we one-time roommates. I got my first job. I don't think it was your first job, but my first job. Billy was there, and you know, we've crossed the years while we've been in different places of the world, parts of the world. We've maintained connection, and there was something about seeing the two of us come together, and I think there was because there's been a lot of couples doing quarantine cabarets, and there will be more. I think there was something about like, oh, well, what about this other form of connection? And I think the quarantine cabarets are all about connecting and our connection to another human. And how about another way to connect? How about Billy and Rob, who are like been friends for ages and are in different cities? How do we perform connected in different places, and that's how that came. And Billy, I think, came up with the idea of the show. We were kind of knocking about like, how do we talk about our connection? And he was like, well, you know, we were connected through one performer.
It's true. So we decided to create an evening in tribute of that one performer.
Yes.
This seems like a great time to share the name of our cabaret.
Yes.
Keeping us in suspense here.
I know.
I know the title, but tell the audience.
It is called, Rob, do you want to do the first line and I'll do the second?
Sure. The book,
Lessons from Our Broadway Jesus.
Yes. the book of Audra.
Yes.
Amazing. And I'm so excited about this because we had tickets to see Audra McDonald at the Kimmel Center, and they were pushed back a couple of times, and then ultimately it was canceled.
Yeah.
Oh no!
I had plans to go see her in Williamstown in is that Massachusetts? Where she was going to do Streetcar Named Desire. So I was going to see her do Blanche. Wow.
Oh my goodness.
She ended up doing a radio play of it, which was also great. But man, I was going to take a pilgrimage with a couple of friends to go see her do some Tennessee Williams.
Oh man, that would have been amazing.
It would have been.
One day.
When we're all back.
So how do you capture a talent so big as Audra in a cabaret?
Ooh, what a question. And definitely a question that we've both asked ourselves and talked about for a long time. Rob, can I take this one, or do you want to speak? I feel the one thing I can say is, I think the reason we find Audra so iconic, and we both like love her so, neither of us know her personally, but I think the reason why she has such a place in our hearts is that she, like any iconic artist, has helped other artists become better artists. So I think, as we worked out this evening and picked out what songs we wanted to sing, it's not necessarily an autobiographical or biographical exploration of Audra's career. That's not what we're doing. We're actually just celebrating ways she's helped us become the artists that we are. Because for me, she has absolutely done that. She's informed my sense of taste, what I consider good performances to be, what I consider good art to be. That's why I call her my Broadway Jesus.
Yeah.
When some say, what would Jesus do? I say, what would Audra do? And I find myself doing that.
Here's the reason why I'm doing theater, actually. I was on my way to become a high school choir teacher in high school. And then I saw her and I was like, oh, there's this thing. And there's this person. Oh, this is possible. Brown people can do this? Oh.
Yeah.
And so it really was like, oh, okay. So yes, a life filled with Bernstein and Sondheim and legit singing and technique and high notes and, a diversified career that's all about the classics, but also about contemporary and also about music and also about, non-musical theater and, comedy versus talk about diversified. I'm like, oh, you can do it all as a brown human? Yeah, all right.
Yeah. I remember the television production of Annie where she played Grace. And I remember I didn't have all the words then, but I just remember the me back then would have probably been like, yes, queen. I just remember she was so beautiful and she brought so much, her voice was just so, I knew those songs, but just, coming through her filter was just wow, what an excellent choice here.
Agreed.
And I always thought it was wonderful, and I watched that one all the time.
It's a good one. She was fantastic in it.
Yeah. So tell us some of the pieces. What are some of the selections we'll experience in the series?
Oh my gosh, Rob, are we going to give spoilers or should we give teasers?
We'll give teasers, not spoilers.
Teasers. That'll be good.
This is one of the things I'll say is that everything from beginning to end, the song Audra has sung in public and there's some sort of recorded evidence of. There's not going to be, there's a lot of for those of us who are Audra aficionados and maybe even theater fans, there's a lot of Audra's greatest hits. Neither one, it doesn't make sense for either of us to sing Your Daddy's Son, right? We're not going to sing Your Daddy's Son from Rags.
Correct.
I don't sing. It's all that crying to babies you buried alive. If you haven't seen Ragtime, happens pretty early on. But yeah, we're gonna be singing. Let's talk about. We can sing from shows. So there'll be songs from, Hallelujah Baby. There'll be songs from Songs for New World.
Mm-hmm. We'll be serving some Jason Robert Brown, some Sondheim, some Bernstein, the great voices of musical theater, and maybe some surprises too.
Yeah.
So we're still in suspense, but we are very much still on board. That's fine. Yes. So let's talk a little bit about virtual theater. And what was your experience before this shutdown? Had you worked on anything from remote capacity, much like we had done in the past year? And how did you feel about starting to do this? And what are some of the things you had to sort of adjust to or get used to? And if you can find something that you actually love about it that you never thought you would. Tell us some of that.
Well, I mean, for me, I had almost no interaction or experience with virtual theater before the pandemic hit. Like I experienced live theater recorded, obviously, which is not the same thing as virtual theater. I mean, it's recording, but this idea of, you know, doing live theater in the Zoom world, which is one thing, or doing a recorded thing, presenting it and streaming it through a virtual setting. This is all brand new to me personally, and I think pretty new to the industry. I mean, there's still people figuring out how to do it. For me, one of the things that was notable, and first of all, you know, there's nothing that is going to replace live theater. You know, when someone is singing at you, literally the sound, they're moving and putting sound waves into your ears that affect you. So it's a physical experience that you cannot experience in any other format. But I decided to embrace the moment we were in and have this moment of surrender and see could teach us. And the thing that it taught me, first of all, was I had to learn myself. Meaning to because, you know, when you're recording something, the thing you aren't able to do on stage is watch yourself.
Yeah.
And this idea of watching myself and becoming critical of what I do, but embracing what I do and loving it. Because as Patti LuPone said, I'm not a big fan of me. And this is not to say like I don't love me. It's just like I'm not like, ooh, I'm not, you know, like the kids on TikTok and doing the angles. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll put it out there. I hope somebody enjoys this. So I had to get used to like what I look like, what I sound like, and how to craft a performance on camera. You know, there's a lot that people talk about being on camera. It's like, it's smaller, and it's like, well, it's striking a balance of energized performance for a smaller venue that picks up everything. And, you know, just for me as a theatrical performer, everything is large and big and big voice, and having to calibrate that for something that is, you know, I guess a lot more. I guess you can see a whole lot. I mean, that's really the thing. So it doesn't require as much for it to read, but also it requires a certain amount. Otherwise, it just looks. Yeah. So, you know, finding that balance was, and it's still the thing for me that's been the thing I've learned. And I love how it's made theater so accessible for all types of people across the wealth gap.
Yes.
That theater.
You're here.
Do like, here's $20, here's $5, and you can have some theater. Won't be the same, but at least you'll be in the room where it happens, right?
Yes.
And you can afford it. That's my feeling.
Yes. Ooh, I really do think access, you know, what Rob mentioned about access, I think that's the biggest gift for me. And, you know, I feel like the industry has access across like intersections of like, you know, people that would be in their own silos. And now all of a sudden we have access to people we normally wouldn't have access to. I think that's industry wide. Speaking very personally, I don't know when Rob and I would ever actually be able to do something like this if we were limited to doing something in person. So like this very thing that we're doing together, I think is a prime example of a gift that the pandemic has given us. I mean, if Rob can call spending 5 hours with me on Zoom a week a gift, but
we just kiki.
It's true. We're like, oh shoot, half an hour's gone. We should get to work. But yeah, you know, to me, you know, there's so much possibility in like virtual theater, and I think the times when I've seen it work really well and be really successful are the times where it really gives audiences that connection they're hungry for, while at the same time reminding them of the need to gather in person one day. It's funny. I feel like leading up to the pandemic, I had kind of been scared that theater's days were numbered, that our art form was something that would die out sooner than later, just because I felt people are so used to being on their screens, that is the default now, and people were losing sense of the value of gathering in live space. And I think now, God willing, once this whole thing is behind us, I feel like we're going to encounter a whole population who's more ready than ever to gather and be with people and share something in live space. And I look forward to us, capitalizing on that.
Mm-hmm. I've been looking at it as, when we think about the tension, the conflict that our characters are in, and that our characters are going through, they're already in a box that they're either stuck in for that period of time. And now you've added this other layer of virtual theater where you are literally in a box, and you almost want to shake the camera, and you're trying to make sure that you resonate outside of this box. And some of the pluses that I've found in it is that when it's done right, there's this opportunity to engage with the audience who is also experiencing this, whether if there's a chat on the side. And those are the kind of things you can't do when you're in the theater. So it's something different, in the virtual space that makes it's still not live theater. It's still not the way we appreciate live theater, sitting in a quiet room in the dark, subtly unwrapping our candy and side-eyeing everybody who forgot. But it is fun. So it has a thing. I hope it doesn't go away completely. I hope we still have the opportunity to attend live theater, but there's also this moment. It's your family in Kansas? Okay, they can take the virtual experience. And, we'll put so much effort into, where that camera is positioned in the room so that they can feel like they're in there. Because what I've seen is it would be really great if the camera was in the best seat in the house, and we know it's not necessarily dead center. It could be one of those spaces. So if the camera is positioned from that angle, experiencing it from that view in a virtual screen would be something. I think that once we get the hang of this, we're going to start seeing so much more creativity come out of this. And, for that, we were graced with reunions of, musical artists who come together to sing that hit song, through the various Zoom boxes, and that's been beautiful. But that wasn't anything we could do. How do you pull all the cast members from several different tours of this production to come together to sing that song that, as soon as you heard it in the musical, you were like, this is it. I'm going right to concessions to buy everything. I got to get the pin. I got to get the shirt. I got to get the hoodie for my grandma, and I'm getting the book, all those things that sort of now I have to take this home with me. And it also has the element of you can't record it. So it only happens once. I mean, as the audience member, you can't capture it. So it only happens once. So it does have something, but I think it just makes me want to be in the room.
Yeah.
So
it is a nice little reminder of what live theater is and can be. But what? One of the things that you're hitting on is innovation and the
yes.
that which has been a real gift of this. How do we innovate and tell some of these same stories so that, or if you were one of those people who went to the intermission and this is my show, I got all the stuff, how can we present that material to someone else who may not have had that experience? And, I'm just going to now gush a little bit on Billy, because Billy just did this at UArts, where he directed it. And, we picked a season last year that no one knew was going to be virtual. And I have to say, all of the people have stood up, stepped up to create things virtually in a wildly innovative way that you would not have expected had it just been presented on stage. And I'm hoping that we can bring some of this innovation back to the theater so that it doesn't have to be like, okay, we don't need the helicopter, even though it's brilliant. Sometimes we want it. But if we don't need it, then we can still do it. You know, we can do Angels in America in a black box. Need the flag, right? It's lovely to have. Do we need it? You know? And so, you know, doing things like, you know, Billy just did this lovely Myths and Hymns project at UArts, where it's like this, you know, about the myths of the world and some hymns. And it's really about mythology and our connection to people and each other. And you know, it was all presented and it was beautiful. I mean, the students created things that they would not have created had they just done the show. It was a visual experience, unlike a live experience, and it was just like, this is new. This is something new. And I think you're gonna see more of it. I don't think it's going away at all. I think it's here to stay.
Thanks, Rob. That means a lot. Rob got me the gig after all. And yeah, you know, it's true. I totally agree with both of you. It's a matter of, I feel like at the end of the day, this pause, must be worth it because we've all lived through it. And when it is, I feel like we will, fingers crossed, we will encounter a renaissance for our art form, and we will encounter more people ready to receive the art we make, and we'll find more, you know, I think this is another big part of the conversation we've all been having, more equity, inclusion, access in the art we make and those who get to create it, and those who get to partake in it. So, you know, I'm often a violently optimistic person, but I do find myself, you know, hopeful of everything that's ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're, you know, when the wheels are moving, it's hard to take a break and work on, to do that work. Yeah. And, you know, whether that is an excuse or not, like there's no excuse now to, if we come back with the same issues we had before, what were you doing this whole time? You had nothing but time to think about how to right the ship, instead of just saying like, well, we're moving and we'll deal with it incrementally as we go. No, we're sitting down to talk about this now because we claimed that we didn't have the time, and now we have the time.
Yeah,
I'm just blown away at like, it always drives me crazy when I hear, you know, I'll hear something like, well, we couldn't find the talent of color. And I'm like, really? You couldn't?
Were you looking?
Were you even looking? Yes. And then when you see a piece of something when it's all people of color just being brilliant, you're like, okay, you can find them? You didn't know they were there? Because I got like 5 people right here I can call right now. We can get on a voice chat.
That's right.
And then you can figure out how you can work together moving forward.
Always been there. I think there's something cosmically, you know, there's almost like the world, the earth, the entire earth had to like press reset. You know, what I find really interesting is that, you know, we haven't heard in a long time, but, you know, when this pandemic had first hit a year ago, after a couple months in, like, you know, cities that were smog ridden were beginning to clear up. Now, you know, some of these issues have been going on literally for centuries. The idea of inequality and who gets to do what and who gets opportunities to do what has always been here. But now we have a moment to listen. I think literally, like cosmically, you know, powers that be had to be like, pause. Y'all need to sit down. You need a time.
Yeah.
God literally was like, to the whole theater industry, she was like, sit in the corner. Think about what you've done.
Yes.
Change.
Girl, stop.
Girl. Right. Look at your choices.
Yes. I was thinking, so if we could, let's break the fourth wall a little bit and talk about things that you miss about theater that audience members don't get to see.
Ooh.
Like the behind the scenes stuff, the showmances and the the things like that. Tell me about some of those things that you miss about being a part of, the production process.
Well, as someone who married their showmance, I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, there's so much, Rob. There's so much.
The friendships.
The friendships.
It usually has to do with the people,
Mm-hmm.
It's the connection. It's the one of my favorite things that I'm like getting used to doing. It's been a while since I've had the opportunity to do, but it's one of the things I love is just like the pre-show ritual.
Yeah.
Depending on what the show is, for me, walking the space, being in the space when the lights are down, putting on a costume, that's at the transformational moment of that. For me, one of the things, if I'm able to do it, if I have time to do it, I love to talk to the band before the show. When I was doing the new brand, my entrance was like through the band. And every day my ritual was to like come and like just be like, hey y'all, how y'all doing? Talk to me.
I love that.
And it's just this whole thing we're coming together to do this thing, the whole communal feeling of, and it feels very spiritual and it feels ancient and it feels like it's greater than me. That's what I miss, this feeling of I'm getting ready to do something that's bigger than me, that will go on past me, that was long before me. I'm just in the line of a tradition. And I miss that feeling of, the magic of the darkness, being able to like be on stage in dark, seeing the audience, knowing what we're getting ready to do and watching the lights come up and seeing, the delight and its connection. That's for me.
Oh, yeah. Rob, I love that. I agree. Oh gosh. I think the other thing I miss is rehearsal. Rehearsal and collaboration with that connection. Like being, in a this is a term that got thrown around a lot at Rob and my first gig together, a consummate ensemble. Being part of an ensemble and like collaborating with other artists and like being surprised by each other and like being participatory in the creation of something, knowing that you'll get to share it and that'll be a little different every night, but it'll still carry the message that you're wanting to offer. To me, that there's nothing like that, especially like the live aspect of it. So that's what I miss the most. And I also miss the mishaps.
Oh my gosh, how are we going to clean this up? How mess that is happening on stage right now?
No, it's your line. No, it's your line. It's your line. No, it's my line.
I just shit that I'm eating on stage and I now can't sing. all the mishaps, because those are like the livest moments, because it's literally you are in the moment. So it's a panicked moment usually. But you in the moment, how am I gonna cover? Oh, this person went up on their lines. Can I help them?
Yeah.
Like all of those mishaps are like my costume broke.
Oh man.
And you have to be so quick about it when it's live, and you're like, how do I support my scene partner without pulling us all out of the production? It's like, didn't you say we're gonna?
Yep. Oh man.
Definitely. When the doors open again, what do you hope to be doing? Is there anything that was on hold that is definitely coming back, or are you just hopeful that something, are you in future talks of anything? What do you hope to be doing when the doors open again?
Well, in terms of things something that I hope comes back, right before the pandemic shut everything down, I was in callbacks for a production of Once on This Island at the Arden that Rob and I were going to do together. Rob was going to be in the cast. I was choreographing and associate directing, and we were like putting the finishing touches on the final members of our cast before we started rehearsal, and then everything happened. So my hope is that finds its way back to Philly and back to the Arden at some point, because it's a special piece with a special group.
Yeah, that group, that whole process was so beautiful. And I was auditioning with like people I'd known for ages, people I met at the audition, and students I had taught. It was a joyful, loving, easy audition. It wasn't nerve-wracking at all. And that group of people, you could tell, was special. It was the first time I was going to work with Malika. It just would have been. I hope that comes back. There's no plans.
Right.
The problem now with where we're at is like there's a light at the tunnel, as Andrew Lloyd Webber. Well, actually, Andrew didn't write that. Whoever wrote the lyric to Starcatcher, don't know. Doesn't even matter. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel now. But there's still so much uncertainty about how we're going to be, what we're going to be. Theater, it's funny because theaters had like, at the end of the summer had like, oh, okay, well, we'll have a little mini season. And I saw theaters putting up, shows that they were going to produce in the spring. Here we are. Those shows aren't happening. There's, I have a mock audition assignment I have my students doing right now that I did some research, and I wanted to give them a real call that was, a real breakdown for a theater. And there's a theater in Georgia that was like, we're doing a season starting in January 2021. And I was like, what? They're not doing it.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. So it's really hard going forward.
Like, I love your enthusiasm, but I'll believe it when I see it.
However, grain of salt, right? So it's. I think there's a lot of caution, especially when it comes to budgets, because the theater just financially has been decimated, and so it's really hard to know what's going to happen. There's lots of hopes. I hope theater comes back in a more inclusive way, in a more gentler way, kinder way to the folks who work in it. But as far as titles, that might as well be my favorite shows and my dream roles, because I don't think anyone's really sure.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the only thing this year has really reminded me of finding clarity in what's within and beyond my control. And I feel like once it is safe to do so, I am just excited to get a bunch of people in a room and just create something. I'm excited to be surrounded by theater artists, have a naturally lit studio with some floors that you can jump on and explore and just feed off of each other. I feel like that's something that folks will be able to do sooner than later. Folks won't need a contract to do that. And I'm excited. I feel like the more those creative energies are unleashed, the better the art will be when we're paid to do it.
Yeah, I saw there were a few. I don't know if they were Instagram clips or a few bits on social media of artists returning to theaters and just being so overcome with emotion, just saying wow, I didn't think it was going to hit me the way it does, the way it did. I was thinking about some theaters that I walked into for the first time. I was interviewing at a place and they said, "Do you want to see the theater?" And I was like, yes. And I walked in there, lights are out and everything, but just being in the space, my eyes got watery. I was like, this is, yes. Can I start tomorrow?
Yeah. It really does feel like church, doesn't it? It really does feel like a sacred place.
Yeah.
It's home.
Yeah.
It's home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being without it has been it's a sense of unmooring, just sort of drifting a little bit. And, but it's gone by, so slowly and so quickly. It's, it's like, we've gotten used to this idea of, okay, we're in the virtual world now. It'll be really interesting to see, getting back to like, do we know what we're doing? Like, what are these sea legs going to be like going back?
Mm-hmm.
It's over here.
Gotta be wobbly once you get on the boards again. Ooh, ooh.
My legs.
Are we going to need 2.5 weeks to put this up? It's we've gotten used to it, and I think that's one of the reasons why it can take you aback. Like, I forgot this feeling of being in this space. I took this feeling for granted, and now that it's not there, and that's another blessing and gift, gratitude.
Yeah. Well, I really hope we've learned valuable lessons through this. We should never be shut down this long again. It's like even something as simple as like a live feed of the ghost light.
Yes.
and every now and then somebody pops in. Hi.
Yes.
How are you? I'm the only one here, so I thought I'd sing a few songs.
Absolutely. Give it to us.
Ghost Light series. Yeah. Okay, so on Saturday, March 20th, we will be fortunate enough to experience a curated night of musical theater pieces paying tribute to the Audra McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Broadway greats. And very excited. So listeners, okay, pay attention. This is the part you got to listen to. It's Society 11. Online, you got to go to 11thhourtheatercompany.org and you buy the whole series. It's a 3-part series. You buy the whole series. It's $50 for all access, and it's a virtual membership. So once you buy that, you're going to have access to all 3 pieces, and we'll talk about the other ones on a later episode. But for Saturday, you're going to be fortunate enough to experience Rob Tucker and Billy Bustamante get it in on this virtual stage, paying tribute to Audra. Rob, Billy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I was going to ask you if you would sing for us, but I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm just going to leave it and make you feel guilty about it. Since we were being very subtle and teasing about what we were going to experience, you're just going to have to find out.
Gonna have to find out.
But we'll let you get back to the virtual rehearsal processes. And we are looking forward to experiencing this on Saturday. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Thank you for helping along with the other theater artists to keep the ghost lights lit and keep the energy and the excitement of theater alive until we can get back into those spaces and then complain about how expensive tickets are and how the traffic made me late and how, all the other reasons we would have to bring our drama into the theater and then tuck it into a bag and unwrap our candy and give ourselves to the experience on the stage once again. So thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Darnell.
And we'll see you at the virtual theater.
Heyo.
Rep Radio is an Emory production. You can find Rep Radio on social media at Rep Radio on Facebook, at Rep_Radio on Instagram and Twitter. For more information, visit us online at em3ry.com. Ride with us. Emory is on the move.